Let's talk about conjugates. Conjugates are a tool that we can use to simplify expressions, okay? And they're particularly useful when you have a radical in your denominator and you want to get rid of it. If you have 1 over 2 minus root 3, you can multiply that by the conjugate to get rid of this root 3 on the bottom. So you're going to multiply by 2 plus root 3 and 2 plus root 3 because you have to multiply by the same thing on top and bottom, right? Now what you get here is on the top 2 plus root 3 because you just multiply by 1. And on the bottom 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times root 3 is 2 root 3. Negative root 3 times 2 is minus 2 root 3. And negative root 3 times 3 is negative 3, right? Because if you multiply two roots together, you're just going to get that thing, right? The square root of 3 times itself is 3. Now these middle two terms cancel because one's plus, one's minus. 4 minus 3 is 1, so you're just left with 2 plus root 3. So you've successfully taken that radical out of your denominator, which is a little bit more proper, right? It's a little bit more like what we're used to seeing. Let's do another example. Let's say you have square root of x plus 1 divided by 1 minus the square root of x. You want to get rid of that radical on the bottom, so you multiply it by 1 plus root x and 1 plus root x like that. Okay, so on the top you have root x times 1 is root x times root x is x, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times root x is root x, divided by 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times root x is root x, negative root x times 1 is negative root x times root x is negative x. Okay, collect like terms. On the top you're going to have 2 root x plus 1. On the bottom these two cancel and you're left with 1 minus x. Okay, so even though this might look a little bit more complex than what we had originally, it's better because we don't have the radical on the bottom, although I suppose better is subjective, but this is typically what teachers like to see. They don't want to have a radical in your denominator. Now, let's move on here. Let's say that we have 3 plus the square root of x divided by 2 minus square root of x. You just multiply that by 2 plus root x on the top and bottom, like that. Okay, now we have to multiply this out, so 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times root x is 3 root x. Root x times 2 is plus 2 root x. Root x times root x is just plus x. On the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. You'll have plus 2 root x minus 2 root x minus x. Collect like terms. On the top, you'll have 5 root x plus 6 plus x. And on the bottom, you'll just have 4 minus x, right? Those cancel out. And that's it. That's your final answer. And in addition to this, of course, if you need to, if you have something like 1 over root 3, you can always change that, right? You can always get rid of that radical on the bottom simply by multiplying by root 3 over root 3, right? Because then on the top you get root 3 and the bottom just becomes 3. So you go from having this to having this. And that's pretty common when we're working with things like trigonometry and you're finding the sine or cos or tan of a angle, right? And you get something with a radical on the bottom, you can easily change that so that the radical is on top. And this is stuff that we've covered in the past, but we've always sort of brushed past it, explained it just briefly, so that was worth having a video on its own.